both sides of the aisle are throwing affordability around, and it's rich coming from the people in Connecticut that have been in charge. They've had the supermajority. So for them to blame affordability and all the other problems in the state is rich at best. And, you know, it'd be nice to not have an administration here in the state that is supporting a governor who's decided to just fight with the president just to fight with the president.
Well, imagine all that money that could be given back to make things a little more affordable in Connecticut.
Welcome to Lock and Load Podcast. My name is Josh.
And I'm Michelle.
And we talk to you about Connecticut 2A issues and some other stuff. So today our special guest is Chris Shea. He is running in the 5th Congressional House District for Connecticut to send him to Washington. Give us a little bio about yourself, and then we're going to dive into these questions.
Hey, I'm Chris Shea, running for the 5th District in Connecticut against Johanna Hayes this coming fall. Spent 33 years in the Navy, 31 of it in the SEAL teams. I am a current fire lieutenant in North Haven, Connecticut right now, and I run, well, my wife actually does most of the heavy lifting nowadays, an organization called Hero to Hero, which helps people coming out of the military and veterans transition into first responder roles. We figured we didn't have enough to do, so then let's run a Congress here. Born and raised in the district. I lived in Watertown for about 45 of my 55 years when Uncle Sam didn't have me away doing other stuff. And then after our last stint at the Pentagon, finally had to put an offer on the 17th house that we were able to look at.
Jeez.
The last time the housing went crazy. So we live in southern Cheshire now, calling that home, and happy to be there as well. And but it can very conveniently, we are on the very southern eastern tip of the district. So getting to places like Salisbury and Kent are exciting, to say the least.
Yeah, your district is a very interesting one. So, you know, the viewers at home, we filmed this at our store here in Southington, and across the street is the 5th District.
Yep.
Right here's the 1st District.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is very, very crazy how gerrymandered some districts are in Connecticut.
It's rich when the Democrats complain about gerrymandering. When you look at, like, hey, let's carve Prospect out of the 5th District, which is one of the reddest towns, and then throw Winston on top of that, right? Go all the way up and around and make that part of Hartford. It makes no geographical sense whatsoever.
5 and 1, very interesting. 2 is just that whole right side of the state, at least.
Yeah.
Well, and Connecticut didn't talk about redistrict. Like, there's a lot of states right now on a federal level that are looking at redistricting. Connecticut was not one, did they? Right. Were they?
They did some the House ones for not for you, but for state level a couple of years ago, maybe 6 or something.
Well, no, I'm just saying because it's a hot topic right now because they
don't need
why.
to. They don't need to, right? A a lot of these.
They don't think so. They don't think so.
That's it. They don't think so.
So when I was just looking it up, the guy who had this a while ago is our least favorite person probably on our pod. Not that we've ever had him on, but Murphy had the 5th Congressional District back in the day. Yeah.
Yes,
right. Southington native, by the way.
Is that where he's from?
Yeah. That was where he was from.
His Airbnb is not here anymore.
He started on planning and zoning in Southington, actually. Okay. And he went to the 16th state, had the 81st House District, 16th Senate District, and then moved to Cheshire, which was still in the 16th, and then ran for the 5th.
Nice.
Was a career politician at your finest, right?
Yes, they started right from the beginning, yeah.
Lucky us.
I'm the exact opposite.
Yes.
Exact opposite.
So we're going to go through some questions, and we're going to dive on into this. We'll give some kind of little background questions first for the viewers. We'll dip into 2A questions for you, and then, wonderful stuff. Now, I think one important fact, guys that have been watching this before, this is Washington, right? This is nothing. You can't fix gun laws in Connecticut.
Correct.
That is not the job you're going for. It doesn't work that way. But on the federal side, you never know what the makeup's going to be over there and what they're going to go and try to push. The past Biden administration and the ATF was certainly not a fun time. So we'll dive into this. Michelle, hit him with the first question.
It would help to have more voices from Connecticut. Well, a voice.
A voice. So a voice for the Northeast.
Well, it's interesting.
Right?
I people say that I see this on the trail all the time. Somebody, I think it might have been Larson or one of the other congressmen was asked about something they needed help at the federal level. And they're like, well, why don't you call? He's like, well, they're not taking my phone call. No. So how bright of us as a state to let's take all 7 people in D.C. that the current administration isn't really going to talk to unless they absolutely have to, and then let's have the governor pick a fight with them too. Brilliant. Yeah. Yep. So how's that going to work out for us on the federal level? So we're looking to change that. Like, hey, now at least we'll have an advocate that can be in there in D.C.
Well, and we have some really good candidates this year.
Yeah.
Going, running, which is really nice. It's this year is a little breath of fresh air. I think I just all across the board, the whole entire ticket. I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously at the convention. We were both there as delegates. We both don't live in your. You don't live. Do you live in his district?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm Lancia.
Lancia. Okay. And so I know you guys have a primary coming up on the 11th, August 11th. And then the 4th district, I think, has one too, maybe.
Okay.
Because you guys were like sectioned off. We had 1, 2, and 3 together because they were like unopposed.
Right.
And then 4, you had a little section over there, and 5 had a louder section.
You guys were very loud.
Did you like the "Let's get ready to rumble" at the end?
Yes.
Did you guys hear that?
That was
yes,
pretty good.
Because you're right behind the curtain.
Yeah, I figure we're in the casino. You got to throw that. Give Michael Buffer a shout out there. Yeah.
So going into that though, you guys have your primary. The 4th has their primary, but for the most part, Republicans came out united, right? Especially on our top, the top ticket, right? Yes. The governor, lieutenant governor, all those. Where the Democrats went in and came out, I think, more fractured than when they went in there.
More fractured than I've ever seen in my lifetime.
For
to be
incumbents.
totally honest. Yes.
I mean, even the 1st congressional district, John Larson over here, there's 3 other challengers primarying him right now, which is kind of insane, which is not your district. So.
Right.
But Johanna has you. So.
Yes, she does.
Yes.
All right, dive on in.
All right, so the first question I'm going to ask you is, Connecticut is one of the most expensive states to live in.
I noticed.
I think we all have. What can Congress actually do to help lower costs for working families?
Well, I think it's interesting. You brought up the state about making sure you draw the line between federal and local offices, right? There's not a lot that we can do specifically to tax policy here or whatever energy policies the state produces internally. Of course, whatever can be done on the federal level obviously will help. And one of the interesting things about Johanna is one of the biggest things the federal government did for Connecticut and all other states is pass the tax relief we got this year. She didn't want it, but we still got it passed. And that's something that I plan to go down and try to make permanent or better if at all possible. But I mean, I'm a firefighter, right? So the guys getting the break on tips, everybody else who, cops, firemen, union workers, regular workers that work for overtime, all those guys got a big break. Our folks that work for tips, our seniors, and for crying out loud, if you own any property here in Connecticut, she didn't think we needed the extra 30% bump in our state and local taxes break on our federal. So, I mean, those are the ways where you can get, at least offset the nonsense that's going on in Connecticut. I think also, this election, turning at least one of the districts red would kind of send a message that, hey, wait a minute, we've gone a little too far, or a lot too far, quite frankly. But, that we've got to get more sensible about it. We can't just keep, I think I heard a stat today, someone was telling me that like 4 in 10 people are making plans to leave the state.
Oh, yeah.
Something
I
crazy.
see it all the time.
You see that?
I'm one of them.
It was, who did the study? Some university did that study.
I see it all the time. Just on Facebook comments, either from podcasts or clips. And again, we focus a lot on gun stuff. And that is I think that's a driving factor for maybe not, I don't know, maybe 20%, 25%, something of that percentage, are personal rights, right? Not just guns, right? Your homeschooling, that was a huge one this year in Connecticut, vaccine stuff.
It's crazy what it's gotten so, mandated. I used to joke years ago, because I thought it was bad 10, 15 years ago. And I'm when are they going to start telling me how many squares of toilet paper I can use?
Right. Next week.
And then COVID happened.
Well, then he didn't have any. But I look back now and I go, okay, I wasn't a challenge. Like, I never said it out loud to challenge the people.
I think Malloy and Ned heard that.
I think so. It's like, it's the same as I used to say,
3, no more.
I used to say Connecticut was going to be the next Detroit. Again, not a challenge.
Yeah, no.
But they are certainly trying in Waterbury and Hartford and Bridgeport.
Somebody was listening and didn't understand the sarcasm.
Yeah. No. Good grief, man.
No, it's crazy. It's but I'm one of the ones that's looking to leave between my business, and what I do in the industry I'm in, between my own personal rights, and the taxes and everything else. I can go live someplace else.
Right.
But when we had Ryan Fazio on, he said he looked at stats from U-Haul.
Trips like California.
Yes, and he said they were astronomical, and that Governor Lamoy.
Lamont.
Yeah, that was a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
Malloy and Lamont. God, that would be horrible if they had a child.
Oh,
But Lamont kept saying, we're going to make it better. We're going to we're going to bring in families. We're going to bring in business. And yet the stats still show people are leaving in droves.
Yeah, it's the polar opposite.
And it's like, at what point does he start looking at some stats?
Well, he's paying attention to Eversource now.
yeah, of course.
Not really, but yes, he says he is.
So, what made this the right time to run?
If you ask my wife, it's not, it never will be, all the above. No, it's kind of funny. I did about a little over 5 years in the Pentagon, and this initially got the bug in my ear. I was in resourcing for the SEAL teams, right? So a lot of the work we did was on the budget, and it was in conjunction with Congress. To put it in simple terms, my job in the Pentagon in a lot of ways was to lobby on behalf of my constituents in the Navy to get money from Congress,
Yep.
and to justify what we're doing, what we're trying to spend money on, and all that kind of stuff. And they actually sent me to a 2-week workshop up on Capitol Hill. They call it Capitol Hill Workshop. And you got to meet members. You got to see how that stuff was done on the inside, see what they're looking at when they're talking about actually resourcing things, and who pays for stuff, who budgets for it, because those are two different things. And kind of got just an on-the-job lesson on how stuff works. And I'm like, I say it jokingly, but it's true. I actually left there with the nickname the Mayor of the Pentagon, because I was a prior enlisted guy. I'm not a officer come up through the ranks, and I became a warrant officer later on in my career. I had no business doing the job I was in, technically speaking, in the Pentagon. But I ended up using just my ability to talk to people and ask questions. And I had and being a warrant officer and a SEAL kind of gave me a little bit of I was a one of one. So there was one of me in uniform in the entire building out of 25,000 people. So one other guy that worked in an undersea program for some of our underwater stuff that never saw the light of day. He except coming in and going out, the poor son of a gun. But, so I'd be that some of these senior officers look at me, they kind of give me the dog hearing a whistle look, what is that? I see the seal, what is that funny pin on your thing? So, and I'm a little older, right? So it gave me an opportunity to just, walk into the 2, 3, 4 stars office and shoot the breeze with them, and
Yep.
Figure out hey, how we could get stuff done. And it's hey, you want to get something done, we always talk about in the SEAL teams and in intelligence communities and all that stuff, access and placement, right? If you have access and placement to certain areas, certain people, whatever, that's how you can get stuff done. That's why we have embassies all over the world. Yeah, we're doing nice things, and we're helping the poor folks and doing all that other stuff in other countries. You also want access and placement to certain things for bigger, broader reasons, right?
Knowing people.
Right. So
Always helps.
I kind of just got wow, this is interesting. I think I could. I'm looking over there. I'm like,
I could do
sit in
this.
these meetings. I'm pretty certain people are pretty impressive, but I don't feel like I don't belong in any of these rooms. So it was one of those things that just kept coming up, and a little backstory. I tell this story sometimes. I was active duty, then I was reserve, right? So I was on and off active duty a bunch of times, over 33, almost 34 years. About 19 of it or so ended up being active duty time, if that makes sense. And one of the times I went to Afghanistan I was at the firehouse. I got a call on June 13th saying, hey, you want to go? Gold Squadron's looking for support. You want to go? And I'm like, let me go home and talk to the ladies at home. And my wife says I sold her a bill of goods. My daughter said she do, because I would have either went the next year for a full year with the reserve, went away, or I could have went for 4 months sooner. So I'm like, well, I could go, sold the idea going sooner. I'd be with the tip of the spear guys, blah, blah, blah. I had done it before in 06, 07, deployed with a bunch of the guys that got Bin Laden and stuff. Those were, I augmented them as well. And so June 29th, I landed in Bagram. From the firehouse, straight to Bagram.
Oh, geez, that was quick.
Bing, bang, boom. And unfortunately, August 6th came 2 months into that deployment where the Chinook got shot down and we lost 31 guys, right, on extortion. And it was one of those things that, where I was, the base that I was at, the outstation they call it, was not a lot going on because there was more of a State Department mentality where we were instead of the State Department mentality, if you know what that means. Mm-hmm. People that know will know what it means. But so a lot more touchy-feely, not really actioning targets like we would want to do. So my buddy who was with the other part of Gold Squad, 2 Troop, which I used to call Lou Troop because Lou Langlis was the master chief. They used to call it Lou Troop, 2 Troop. And my friend who was a SEAL and a physician's assistant was down there and had been with them for a long time, but he was only doing half the trip, right? So he said, hey, why don't you come down here? They'd love to have it. The only other medic we have is not a SEAL medic, so why don't you come down and you can run with the guys? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. Well, as you know, he was slated to go home the 7th of July, and obviously you know what happened on the 6th. Mm-hmm. He got the call, hey, John, get your shit. We're going out. John said to a bunch of his good buddies that he'd been with for 10 plus years, I'll see you guys when you get back. Right? He didn't see him till they all came back in bags, and he had to be the medical examiner for all those guys. Oof. Right? All of his good friends, and some of them like gear melted, you have to get gruesome, but like, can you imagine what bodies look like after they burnt and been near a fire and all that stuff for 5-6 hours. So had things shifted a couple of days, like I should have and would have been on that helicopter because I would have been part of that crew. So it's like amongst a bunch of other things in my life, it's like, hey, somebody's trying to tell you, I got something to do. I got something I need to do. And through prayer and reflection, without getting into a big thing, one time some words popped out of my mouth that were from him, not from me. It was like, hey, I gave you broad shoulders for a reason while thinking about doing this stuff. So it's like, well, here we go. Get those shoulders ready. We got a lot of
This is the plan.
We've got a lot of stuff to carry. So,
and it's interesting that you've done that workshop because, unlike some, you've actually had a snapshot of being in the building and seeing how it works. Because it's I would think rather daunting. You come from you're running. You're going to run for office. You're going to do this. But if you don't have that snapshot, you're going in completely green.
Right. Well, I think I might almost, and not that I'm perfect, but I might be the kind of the perfect experience for it. I was not down there long enough to become part of the swamp, so to speak. But I'm not, being in the military, it's a little different anyways. But I also work with people that were there for 20, 30 years, and they were just as they were just a cog in the wheel, right? Turning and, doing good work on behalf of the country and whatnot and patriots, but also just kind of like
there's a system. This
on
is
autopilot,
what we do.
and this is what we do. And I was the guy who was like, I was the kid who was always harassing your parents. Why can we do it this? Why can't we do it like that? Yep. And I always tell a story. I found a big chunk of money that had been appropriated for one thing, and then the mission had kind of changed. It was kind of sitting there, and we had a bunch of stuff that was unfunded for the reserve SEAL teams and other stuff, and ended up moving around like over what we call the FIT up, the future years defense plans. It's a 5-year budget that's like a year and a half to 2.5 years out, depending on where you look at it. Found like $500 million, like $500 million.
It's just like sitting in a closet somewhere.
Yeah,
the post office, I think, found that one time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you think like that's how the heck do you it wasn't lost. It just wasn't really being used for what because
it was earmarked, but then that
the
didn't
mission
have a need.
mission had changed, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, hey, any reason we can't use that to pay for this other shortfall that's been 12 years in the making? And all the experts, the guys that were cogs in the wheel, hey, you can't do that. Way senior to me, way much more experienced. Like, you can't do that. I'm like, challenge accepted. We're going to.
But that's what budgeting and looking at finances does. Yeah. Because you appropriate things for certain reasons, but not always will you go through it. And just because it's there doesn't mean you need to go through it.
Right.
Sometimes there's another need someplace else, and you can move it. So that's a perfect example.
And it gave me a really interesting like macro view of how things work. Because like I said, I came in as an E2 into the Navy. I think they gave me I didn't go as an E1, as an E2 because I had some college credits. So they bumped me up one month. Whoop-de-doo. I think got me an extra $50 a month or something.
I was going to say like $1,000 a year or something.
Yeah. It was
not much.
Pretty minuscule. But it did, helps you make rank a little bit quicker. But, I remember just even being in the SEAL teams and it's just like, guys complain, why can't we get better boots than this? Why have this stupid, whatever gun, sight, whatever. Why can't we get the, and then you get all the way to the other end of the spectrum and see like, hey, here's the pie we're working with. Here's what the people across the river are going to give us.
Right.
They're only going to give us this much more. Oftentimes we're going to take some back. Now you got to work with those pies. And now it's not just, the SEAL teams are tip of the spear, super cool and whatever. But there's also submarines to pay for, which are pretty cool and actually keep us really safe for all sorts of reasons. There's aircraft carriers. There's all the aircraft and people that are on those aircraft carriers. There's the rest of the ships in the Navy. The division that I was in, I worked for a general that he owned all the ships that carried the Marines. We were just a little chunk of his portfolio. He owned the CBs, the EOD teams, the SEAL teams, and then all the ships that carried the Marines. So he's the only 2-star general on the Navy staff for that reason, so that he could look after the ships that were carrying his boys and gals. So
how long did it take you to become a SEAL?
Initially,
this is just a personal question.
It's about for most guys, it's about a 2-year process.
Did you get in and immediately want to go for
So
SEAL?
here's the funny part about me, right? Like my whole there's a lot of funny things about me, but we don't have enough time on one podcast to get into all those. But I had gone in, initially to be a SEAL. I think I might have saw in the first Top Gun when I was like 16, 18, whatever, trying to figure out what you want to do when you grow up. Still trying to do that, figure out what you want to do. But but I have a cataract in my left eye. Couldn't be a pilot, right? And I saw this thing about the SEAL teams. Oh, this looks really cool. I get to shoot guns, blow things up, jump out of airplanes, dive, all this cool, all these. Of course, they're selling you on how like you're going to Key Largo diving. Yeah. Thanks for coming. You're diving under some rickety old ship that's making noises. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Diving. It's not scuba diving in the.
There's no nice fish around.
No. It's not Fiji. Not Fiji and the coral reefs, but it was something I was interested. I went in to do that. And then I was one of those kids. I was never a good student. I was always, and I'm not trying to say this to be self-aggrandizing, but too smart for my own good. Like I could not study and then still get a 95 or 100 on the test, even if I was talking in class too much, and she kicked me out for the whole lesson. Miss Dietolevy, God love her. That poor lady in 8th grade. I had my own desk out in the hallway, and she would kick me out every day because
I had a desk in a hall, but I was in like 1st grade, 2nd grade.
No,
they put me in the hall.
This was 8th grade.
So you learned, you didn't. Got it.
I just got called out.
I'm a late bloomer.
There you go.
But so I would go, she'd kick me out for the whole thing, and then I'd come in, I'd still get like a 95, 100 on the test. I don't understand this kid. Anyways, that didn't go well once you had to start doing homework in high school and things like that, but I still did really good on my SATs in high school, even though I was a total knucklehead. So I got this bright idea when I was in hospital corps school after boot camp. Even I already had orders to go to BUDS, which is SEAL training, right? But I also decided to put in because I didn't know what I was doing, put in an ROTC package, like apply to be an officer, go to college, and then you would go to BUDS after that. There was with my grades and stuff in school, there was no way. Like I would have had to get a straight 1600 on the SATs for me to get, and I got like 12 something, whatever the heck it was, but I was not getting a 1600 because I didn't do my work. And so I ended up coming to the hospital here in Groton, worked in Groton for a year and a half, resubmitted for orders to BUDS, and then went to BUDS, and the rest is history from there. Went to SEAL Team 8. Well,
what did you do at the hospital?
I was a hospital corpsman. So I worked in both direct care, like sick call type of stuff. I could tell you some great stories about that. But I don't know if they're airworthy or not, but some of the stuff we saw there was pretty interesting.
I'm sure.
When the same dude comes back for the same STD twice and he swore he never, does that, it's just, you would see these things. Like, come on, buddy. And the test you got to do to check a guy is very interesting. We'll just say that, to say the least.
Apparently he didn't mind.
No, it's funny. It was, and this may be a little off color, but he was a very dark-skinned African-American gentleman, and I swore he turned white when I did the testing. Poor son of a gun. I'm like, and then he came back again. I saw him.
Why?
I ended up not being his medic that day, but I just saw him across the room, like doing the walk of shame. And I'm just like, dude, what are you doing?
Not again.
Yeah, not again.
Nobody wants to do this.
Apparently, Groton is a place.
It was like a week or two later. Yeah, and
well, you got the base.
so I did that. I ran the mail room for a while because we were in this OpNav. Plus, we did all the operation stuff for the hospital. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Drove laundry from Rhode Island to Newport. I was actually out in Newport the other day for the holiday, and we I saw the old place I used to drive the linen to. It made more sense to do all the laundry for 2 hospitals in one place.
Okay.
And they had a truck drive it back and forth. So it was one of my duties there amongst things. And then I was on I boxed before I came in the Navy, and then I did the Golden Gloves while I was in. I used to.
My goodness, you have done a lot of things.
You think about the things you when you're young and dumb, right? And
boxing
you just don't care.
Would be it.
well, boxing first of all, right? The objective, if you're any good, you try not to get hit in the head, right? But it still happens. But driving from Groton all the way to Waterbury, North Main Street in Waterbury to train 2-3 times a week, I would do that. I'd do my shift at work. I'd drive there, train for an hour and a half, and then drive back. It was like a 5-hour.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, you're nuts. But that was determined, and that was what we did. So then go to BUDS, and then for us medics, you go to BUDS. if you make it straight through, the actual training is about 6 months. There's a pre-training phase that can be anywhere from a month to 2 or 3 months, getting ready. And then you go to, I had to go stick around for me and the other medics and I had to stick around for something called dive med tech school. So like, because our guys are diving, we had to be dive med tech qualified. So like put them in a chamber if they get a diving injury and whatnot. We had to do that kind of stuff. And then we would go to jump school. We used to go to the old Army jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Really?
Which was a trip because those poor son of a guns, the black hats there, the ones that trained us, they had to do every exercise with you. If they dropped you for push-ups, they had to do the push-ups. And if whatever exercise they did, they had to do it with you. And for whatever it's worth, like us coming out of third phase and buds, like we were all, I would die to be in the shape I was in back then, right? And we would get dropped. We'd do 50 push-ups at a clip. So funny story, we're down at Fort Benning, and this guy was kind of a chubby guy. It was kind of funny too, because I don't know what happened the night before. I was just in a bad mood, whatever. We're doing push-ups, and I had like a pissy look on my face doing push-ups. And he looked and he eyeballs at me. He's like, 10 more. And like I saw him like make eye contact, like he was going to punk me out. So I threw one hand behind my back and did the next set of 10. It's the last time he messed with me trying to do push-ups. But the basic jump school is basic jump school. It's like, it's not special forces. It's not that. It's like, so they have a pretty wide breadth of folks, all great Americans, all doing a great job, but the physical standards are not the same physical standards for like going to buds or special forces or pipeline or things like that. And they were getting us at the end of the pipeline when we're just been, like I said, every time our instructors looked at us, we were sideways. We were doing 50 push-ups at a clip.
Right.
And then you'd have to ask them to recover. Hoo-yah, instructor so-and-so. And if they'd say push him out, that meant 50 more.
Yeah.
And if he was in a really good mood, he'd say, hoo-yah, instructor, push him out. He'd do 150 at a clip a lot of times, before they'd say recover.
Oofa.
Get up and then it's nonsense. But yeah.
But you enjoyed it because I could see on your face, like you enjoyed
well,
those days.
It's funny because, one of the guys up here helping me with this campaign is my good buddy Mike, who, he teases me plenty of times, and I always say it, he was the real deal. He did full 32 years straight through active duty, spent a bunch of time at the command at a dev group, and he's the guys that augmented, and he's up here helping me because he retired last year, and he's in between. He's waiting on a government job to come online, so I pulled the friend card on him, and he's up here staying with us up here. But the stories we just reminisce about, just him and I, and then we'll bump into other guys. Remember that time when, like, it's
camaraderie.
It's the whole trauma bonding thing on steroids, right?
Yeah.
So our guys, like,
Sure.
there will be guys that I haven't seen in 20 years, 25 years. You'll see, and like go from like hadn't seen each other in 20 years to right into immediate, stone busting mode and having fun with each other, and it's just it's pretty.
That's
pretty
awesome.
Special.
That is awesome.
And you pay for the laughs, but they're worth it.
Yes. All right. So why don't we jump into gun right questions?
Sure. So you probably used those once or twice.
A couple times.
Couple times.
Couple different ones.
Just touched a gun once.
A couple times.
Yeah, a couple times.
All right. So again, you're in Washington, or
Yes.
you'll be going to Washington. So Connecticut laws don't necessarily,
Ridiculous.
yes, but you can also, when federal stuff comes up. So I just want the listeners to understand this is more of on a federal level, not Connecticut direct, because that's where people get confused all the time.
A lot.
All right. Connecticut gun owners often feel ignored and targeted. Imagine that. What would you say to a lawful gun owner in your district?
About
Just
being
in
targeted
general,
or being ignored.
Would you being targeted
Yeah.
and ignored? How
Well,
would you explain how you feel when you go down there? Would you be listening? Would you be a voice?
Well, I think it's funny, because I heard somebody say this, and it might have even been somebody in your podcast. It's like, I think it was George Austin said something about like, these rules get passed and changed. You have law-abiding citizens that technically could turn into felons overnight because they have
Yes.
a gun or something that was like, what are you talking about? And the thing that makes me crazy is that, being a guy who's shot quite a bit and understands how it works, what it's for, and, guns are a tool just like anything else, And I had said it years before those nuts in Paris or whatever ran the box truck over the parade people. I'm like, there's so many ways that, and we dealt with it all the time in Iraq and Afghanistan, where there's a will, with the lowest technology levels available, people are going to find ways to do horrible things to other human beings. Full stop. And the guns are just a means to the end. And I think the unfortunate part that it's funny because you hear both sides of the coin. You have all these, am I saying this right? The women's lib folks that are, but they're the same ones that want to take your guns away. And it's like, hey, listen, look at the three guys in this room. If either any one of us three decided to have a physical altercation for you, maybe you're a secret UFC fighter and I don't see it in you, but I have a feeling most of us you'd have a hard time with it.
Oh, yeah.
But now you pull out a pistol.
It's an equalizer.
That changes the whole equation because I could be I don't have Captain America's shield and I'm not bulletproof like Superman. So
yep.
It's such an interesting thing. And these rules are made for political reasons. And I think it's shameful. It's made oftentimes by people who've maybe never even pulled the trigger or know what it's like to be in a shoot, don't shoot situation.
Well, I remember one of these Congress people from California, and you can go see it online, and she's like, an AR-15 is as heavy as 50 moving boxes. First of all.
What did she said?
50 moving boxes.
Of course she said that, yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, either your boxes are empty.
Yes. Yeah. And even then, 15 of them, the cardboard gets heavy after a while.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm like, the gun's half polymer. Like, you got a metal barrel, metal receiver, and
see, that's
I'm just imagining like the M16 kind of looking one.
That's why I need a tank.
Yeah,
to
you
carry my AR.
You should have said, "Hey, was it? You sure it wasn't a 50 cal mounted to a Humvee?
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
But it's still not 50 moving
but
boxes.
a lot
At
of
least
these,
not mine.
Yeah, a lot of these politicians don't know anything about firearms, or they don't care. On a Connecticut level, they recently passed 5043. Is that the number?
Yes.
I've been talking a lot about numbers.
Yes.
Which is a Glock ban that goes into effect October 1st.
It's
not
a
just
prohibition on future sales. It's not a Glock ban.
and that's a joke from that.
Is it going to be upheld? Is it going to be challenged? I mean, it's already challenged.
I think the
yes?
feds are going to challenge it. That's a whole other topic.
It's already being challenged in other states.
Yeah.
Right.
So it would
We'll see what
roll
happens.
off, but right now it stands.
But
as of
they don't know
October
what
1st.
they're talking about. 'Cause when like State Senator Rob Sampson is up there asking questions, they're like, well, I don't know.
Well,
okay.
it's so funny because the things that get banned on people watching Rambo or fill in the blank movie, right? If I'm in a firefight with somebody, I hope they went full auto in the first 30 seconds. You know why?
All the ammo's gone.
Because I'm still going to have my bullets and I'm going to put them right where they belong,
Yes.
right? In a calm, cool, collected manner. And the fact that people think that means something like, oh, we want automatic weapons, you want that. It's like, hey, I hope they're spraying and praying. Like, yes, somebody could get
not
shot.
as accurate, and people
but it's
don't
not,
understand
not
that.
nearly as, you know, it's just.
Well, and on top of it, it's already federally banned to have the switches. Like if we're talking about Glocks,
Right.
It's already federal banned to do these things.
Right, to turn them into a.
But the reason they do it, and this is, I think, the kicker for me, is the reason when they pass federal gun laws or on a state side, law-abiding citizens is the key word.
Correct.
When they pass laws, the law-abiding citizens comply because we're law-abiding to begin with, which means we're low-hanging fruit.
Right.
You're not ever stopping the criminals.
Do you think the criminal that already broke 10 rules, do you think the 11th one is going to make him
Shoot, I can't have that.
Yeah,
Fine.
now I get it. Yeah.
Look at high-capacity magazines, right? Or what most people call standard capacity
Standard
magazines.
capacity.
People can get those. They just go to another state,
Right.
right? That doesn't have our stupid laws, and the criminals don't care.
Right.
So on that, where do you stand on federal gun proposals like assault weapon bans, magazine limits, mandatory registrations, and Michelle wants me to add red flag laws?
Yeah, it's funny. I just answered a bunch of those on
Yours
my
like that question,
my NRA questionnaire. I'm in agreement with the NRA on all four of those questions. They sound eerily similar to the ones I just answered. And listen, and just go back to, I think, unfortunately, we have people, legislators, proposing and then sometimes making legislation in a state like Connecticut where you have a supermajority of Democrats that don't know most of them don't know the first thing about a gun, and unfortunately will be the same ones that'll be asking when something horrible happens, why didn't somebody do something about it?
Mm-hmm.
It's, well, because you took the ability for a lot of the law-abiding citizens away to do something about it.
Well, and they also aren't helping mental illness the way they should be, which is what's most of the causes.
Right.
There's, they do. They go, well, how did this happen?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Look at your history in the last we'll even go 10 years
Right.
on how you've tied people's hands and allowed people, like I'm not a universal background check person. I believe in background checks.
Right.
People don't understand universal means a registration of every firearm along with that background.
Right.
I don't like that idea. It's the same as red flags. I get the concept of a red
Right.
flag. On paper, it looks fantastic. But the execution of it has been basically...
It gets abused.
It gets,
yes,
it gets
there's a better
abused,
word I wanted, but
especially in states like Connecticut, like Massachusetts.
divorces.
Right.
They're
Divorces.
using it for everyone.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
not a reason. They're fraudulent accusations.
Right.
But there's no penalty.
So you're
when-
guilty until proven innocent. and
Correct.
That's not the standard of the land.
And today in Connecticut, if you have a red flag against you because your neighbor knows you have guns, you cut your lawn wrong or whatever, and they get pissed off, okay? Because it happens.
Right.
If they do the whole red flag on you, you have to surrender your guns. Well, in Connecticut,
Same.
even if it's dismissed,
Right.
if you had firearms that are now banned, you can't get them back.
Right.
Yep.
So now they've confiscated your property, which is the end game, and we know it.
Right. Right.
But that's not, to me, it shouldn't be legal.
I don't think, I'm interested to see how a lot of these Supreme Court cases are the things that they're getting pushed up there, because I know
So Grant v. Higgins which is our actual court case from Connecticut, was just granted cert by the Supreme Court.
I saw that.
Which means this case will be heard on assault weapons.
Yep.
And we will see what happens with that. That does not have a magazine capacity thing attached to it.
But there are other
but there are other ones
coming-
kicking around,
They're coming
so-
up.
Right.
But,
Same with the Glock ban. There's stuff kicking up.
Yeah, the DOJ just
I'm
announced it's
interest-
suing Cali.
I think it's very interesting that the DOJ is now suing California and coming after all the states, because it said that there's a little birdie out there saying that they're coming to all of those lovely
Anti-gun
states.
states.
And I don't think I've ever seen the DOJ get involved in a
Well,
gun
even
law. I think it's
ATF
awesome.
Yeah, I think you're right.
ATF's getting
Hammer.
better.
Well, because
And I'm afraid to use that word because they're getting hammered. But they're, here's a statement. They're starting to use common sense with laws.
You're
Yeah,
using that word.
I know.
People don't know what that means.
No. And when they go and try to change something, it takes time, right? Because they have to have public input and everything, and then they implement things. But I think there's 60 different proposals right now.
Speaking
which
of
is
ATF, and I don't know if it's one of our questions, but I'm going to ask anyway. If you end up going to Washington,
Yep.
because there's a lot of stuff that comes out with, people are disband NFA, disband the ATF, do this. Okay. Because ATF can do their rulings. It's just not a law.
Right.
Do you think Congress should be investigating delays, overreach, or abuses by agencies like the ATF?
There you
This
go.
is
That's
also
a
right
question.
off the questionnaire.
Yes.
No,
No idea. That's just
yeah,
pretty good.
it's so funny. You guys you're simpatico with the NRA.
Maybe they got
I
it
have
from
no
us.
idea. We didn't go
Yeah,
there, but that's
it's
interesting.
Perfect. It's perfect. No, listen. I mean, that's one of Congress's jobs, right? It's like, hey, we're going to pay for you to do X, Y, and Z. And if it's ATF, it's like, hey, we're paying you guys, we're providing you funds and resources to do this, provide background check, whatever it is, and it should be in this time.
You're the
There's
regulatory.
reasonable time periods, right? So Congress's other job is oversight. It's like, hey, we gave you money last year or in the fall for this fiscal year. Now it's February. What are you doing? And and obviously it would give me a back to my access and placement thing. One of the things I loved, I actually unfortunately became that guy for NSW. Like I'd have the admiral of Naval Special Warfare, Chris Shea. He knows how to get. I became the get it done guy, like the action guy on the inside.
That's a good guy.
Go to see somebody, and that's one of the things I propose to do in Congress. Like, hey, people say, like, what's the first? And I think it's one of your maybe a question I've seen is like, hey, what's the first thing you're going to do when you get down to Congress? People want to come up blaze with this big policy proposal. It's like, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to learn where the men's room is. I'm going to learn where how to get food. I'm going to learn my way in and out of the building, because the Pentagon's the biggest building like it in the world, the biggest single office building in the world. You got to learn your way around the darn thing, and then find out who has the keys to what castle, on what floor, and what office, how to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And you could go down there with the biggest, best policy idea, but it's something that's dead on arrival, and you could waste your whole 2 years till you're trying to get reelected doing that. Or you can say, okay, this is my number one priority, but my third, fifth, and seventh priorities are that stuff I can get done.
Right.
And I can get it done now because I could jump on board with this or advocate that.
Doing local politics, I don't think people understand that at all.
No.
Is that, and that doesn't make it right necessarily. Right. But you have people that are there, and especially in Washington, right? A lot of them career politicians, they're set in their ways of doing things.
Right.
So you got the freshman House rep from Connecticut, and they're like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, yeah,
Dude,
whatever.
have a seat. Wait
Have
your
a seat,
turn.
buddy. Yeah. Like the fire department. Go get the toilet brush. Talk when you're spoken to. Yeah. No, I don't think it's quite that. You'll get put on committees right away. You should be the junior.
Well, committees are, I think, the more interesting part there, too.
But the other thing, too, is having and I already have a little bit of a Rolodex already. There's a few other SEALs that are in there and a couple other members that I've met. And it's being able to being them on my phone and be able to say, hey, so-and-so, can I come see you about this? I know you're on this committee, and this my constituent here in Litchfield has had his application for whatever with the ATF held up for 8 months. Like, this should be a 1 month turnaround. And something you learned in the Pentagon was whenever you had correspondence that came from across the river, senators or congressmen, it was a big deal. Especially the generals in the admin. Well, we got to get this answer. We got to get this back. Like, it gets looked into quick, fast, and in a hurry when you send, because you can do it one of two ways. You can make a phone call, say, can we get this fixed? And maybe that's the thing. Or so-and-so says, hey, I'm very disturbed, blah, blah, blah. This is happening. Why isn't this being done? And if the other agencies in the federal government are anything like the Department of War, letters from across the river get looked at pretty quick and responded to.
So I don't know if you have a choice right out the gate when you go to Washington, but if you did, what committees would be your top few that you're interested in?
It's funny. The automatics, right? Defense and veterans. Those are I'm interested in those by default. I wouldn't want to be shoehorned into those as well. I'm very interested in farming and agriculture, things like that. And it's funny. I had a very interesting interaction with a couple of congressmen, and I'll leave names out of it just for the sake of. But when I was first looking at this, one of the other SEALs that's in Congress, I went to his office to see him, and he ended up having somebody come to his office way on the other side, but they were freshmen together. They became buddies, even though they were totally opposite sides of the coin. And it was funny. He was meeting with us, another SEAL buddy of mine, with this guy, and he's like, you guys want to see? Yeah, you guys hang out. So the other congressman comes in by himself, and so now there's 3 SEAls sitting across the things. I see what you're doing here, blah, blah, blah. But they talked about a couple of things, and this is the thing that I think it's interesting for people to see that they'll never see. There's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of things that get done that will never make the news, right?
Right.
And the one guy represented farmland in Wisconsin, and the other guy represented the Southern District of Illinois, which is Chicago, South Side kind of thing, right? So you can imagine where their politics were, right? But we had an interesting gun discussion. I jumped in on that one with the guy from
South side
Chicago.
of Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like, we got to do something about the guns. I'm like, well, what do you think about and my question to him was like, what do you think about the education side? Well, what do you mean? I said, listen, my mom was a no guns as a kid. And I remember the first chance I got with my buddies to go hunting behind his house, I almost pulled a Dick Cheney because a grouse or something went through the bushes, and he's lucky I didn't shoot him in the behind, right? Because we were idiot 16-year-olds that hadn't had the training, right?
Yep.
Things I would never even, after being in the military, even through basic training of how to handle a gun, pointed at nothing you don't intend to kill or destroy, right? Finger off the trigger, on safety whenever not, properly holstered, put away, all those things, right? Situational awareness of it, where that thing is pointed at all times, whatnot, right? Why not teach kids that? It's like it's just funny that when we did have rifle teams in high schools, and we did have kids with shotgun racks because they went hunting with dad, there was no mass shootings in schools back then.
We had it when I went to school.
Right, but now, so it's like, okay, at what point does the cognitive dissonance give way? I'm like, hey, wait a minute, we keep doing the wrong things, right? Who was it? Einstein said, keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Definition of insanity. Yep.
The definition of insanity. So, like, we keep going in this direction that's not working, and people keep doubling down on it. It's like, we want guns in the hands of law-abiding patriots and citizens, right? It's the reason Why? What was the admiral from or the emperor from Japan behind every blade of grass? Right. That's why we didn't get invaded on the homeland back then, guys. Think it through. Right. And
well, and you can never, as much as they want to ban these, they want to do all this. You're not going to actually eradicate firearms.
Right.
You're just not, because then it'll be all the bad guys that have the firearms.
When you can make a shotgun out of some metal PVC piping and
well, there's a will, there's a way. So, so to the point is, after that, we talked about that, and I brought some points, and I actually got them to like think about it. I was like, interesting. Another thing that made me think about, hey, I could work with these people. I could get some stuff done here.
Yeah.
The other thing they went into was like, hey, I'm on the Wisconsin side of the border. You're in Illinois. Interstate trade can be a son of a gun, right? Like something as simple as like shipping eggs from, and I don't know what the rules are here, from Connecticut to Massachusetts can be a big deal. And like, so you got a guy who's
a firewood law.
Yeah.
There's a sign when you're coming back in from Mass.
Yeah, if you're caught with firewood, because you bring the bugs, blah, 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 right? But these guys sat down and were working on like, hey, how do I get my farmers' stuff into your city? And he's like, hey, how do I get the stuff from your farmers on my city shelves? Like, so this is stuff that you guys totally opposite side of the aisle, but like actual worn out by the last administration kitchen table issues, literally, they were working on this. And that's the kind of stuff, like, it was very encouraging for me to see these two guys working on that stuff in that environment, just basically shooting the breeze in their office, but like really talking about, hey, how do we get this done?
Helping their constituents.
Put food on the table and farmers get paid for their work.
So on that path, since you talked about two different states, we're going to bring in what are your feelings on national concealed carry reciprocity?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Well, I think again, it's back to the I think George Austin's, if I'm quoting him correctly, he's like, hey, you could become a felon without even realizing you did something wrong because you, like, say it was Southington and across the street in Cheshire. It's
driving down this road goes into Cheshire and then back into Southington.
New York, Massachusetts, you wind up and around.
You could be breaking the law just by driving across it. It's silly and absurd, and I don't know how. If you got to go through background checks and you got to pass that
through a federal background check.
Yeah, federal background check, right, to get your concealed carry, whatever you got to do, whatever the right looks like there. If you got to pass it here, why should you have to pass it again, other than to stiff people for fees and whatnot?
Which you're not supposed to be able to charge a fee for a right that we have.
Correct.
You can pay. The fee should be just enough to do the processing, from what I understand with the law, because I've looked into that. But it shouldn't be, nobody should be making money off of a right.
Correct.
And unfortunately, I think that's happening way too often here. Way too often. But so, and it shouldn't, maybe if you're going to have reciprocity, maybe you have to have a certain level of education in every state, because every state does things different. Every state has different laws.
Right.
And people don't understand, even if you have reciprocity, say that magically did happen, because it's been on the table.
It comes up in the House, it passes the House a lot.
It's something
it dies in the Senate.
It's something I'd love to advocate for. I know, and I'm no scholar on our rights and everything, but the states' rights versus federal rights and all that stuff gets pretty entangled and intertwined. So
we go back to a constitutional right.
But so carrying, that's what I was getting at. Carrying is okay. Like, I would love to see that, where you can carry in every state, but again, you still have to know what those state laws. Can you carry open? Can you carry do you have to carry concealed? Is it deep concealed? These are all things that people need to know, because I hear it all the time. I travel all over the country with my firearms.
Right.
I know which states I can stay in and which states I need to get across real quick.
Right.
I know where I have to carry it, a certain way. I know all that, but then I talk to other people that go, I'm going to go out there and I'm good to carry it out there, so I'll be fine. And I'm like, do you realize how you can carry it out there? They're like, what do you mean?
Or the states you have to go through, like New York and Jersey.
And I'm like, and if you stay in a hotel,
and
make sure you don't stay in a hotel in a state that's not going to allow, that's not gun friendly.
Gun laws
and they're
are
like,
very
what do you mean?
complicated.
They shouldn't be. I mean, so I guess the short answer is, like, they shouldn't be that complicated.
Correct. Well, the ATF is currently looking into the whole Federal Transportation Act, because it should, with the way they're writing it down, I think it's up for comment right now, is like, I go out to Arizona, for example. So a good stopping point would have been New Mexico for me.
Okay.
But because New Mexico is like very icky on guns, I do not stop there. So I have to do a short stint and then a very
You say
long
very
day
icky what?
on
They're
gun
not as-
laws.
Yeah, they're not as pro 2A.
They're like barely
Barely.
2A. So I can't stay in a hotel. But what they're saying up at the ATF now is they're trying to change the rule where if you're traveling, you should be able to stop anywhere because that traveling encompassed a night out. You can't stay for 3 or 4 days and sightsee,
Right.
but I could get a hotel for the night and then get up and I'd be safe. So that made me happy. But again, it comes down to the ATF doing their rules. And again, it comes to like, even with the ATF, it needs to be regulated a little bit more, I think, because look at under the Biden administration and how weaponized the ATF became,
Right.
especially at the industry, not
Right.
just at the people.
It was bad.
You know, and if you have another regime that comes in and wants to do that, that it shouldn't go back and forth.
No, it
to me.
needs to be. It needs to be legislated and put into laws. What it needs.
Correct. Correct. Okay.
So, moving on to other topics here. Inflation, economy, affordability.
Yes.
Inflation is at grocery stores, utilities, rent, insurance, small businesses hit them hard.
I was
What
like,
is your plan to get costs down and anything to help small businesses?
Well, it's funny, you know. It's I love the word. People on both sides of the aisle are throwing affordability around, like it's just a buzzword to throw around, and it's rich coming from the people in Connecticut that have been in charge. You know, they've had the supermajority for how long?
years?
It's been
many
it's
years.
been a hot-
Governor
yeah.
now for 16 years.
Been
been a
in
hot minute.
majority,
Yeah.
not even a super majority, but majority for like 50 years.
It's been a hot minute, right? So for them to blame affordability and all the other problems in the state is rich at best, right? And, you know, so to distinguish between the local and federal, I mean, there's things that they can do. And, you know, it'd be nice to not have an administration here in the state that is supporting a governor who's decided to just fight with the president just to fight with the president, right?
Spend
How
more
many
money.
times?
Yeah, yeah.
How many times has Tong sued, or Attorney General
Right.
sued Washington?
Well, imagine all that
Like-
money that could be given back to make things a little more affordable in Connecticut. That's
Right.
you know, that's just, but that's Connecticut, not federal.
Right. So I think the federal government's job here is to provide an environment where businesses can thrive. We can make stuff. We can build things, and you know, whatever we can do to. Obviously, we need regulations so people aren't just dumping toxic waste into the Naugatuck River again, right? Whatever, right?
That would be bad.
Yeah, we can't do that stuff. But you know, technologies for all that kind of stuff. And shout out to my buddy at George LeCapra up there in Thomas in Connecticut. Just put a huge facility into his place to clean the water that he uses in his industrial processes, so none of it even goes into the
Oh, that's
river
cool.
at all anymore. It's I need to learn more about it, but it's pretty cool. But I mean, the technology's come a long way, but we need to do things to encourage businesses, encourage business growth, incentivize the people that are taking chances, the people that are putting their businesses, their money, their livelihoods on the line to create new stuff, to build things for us, and to encourage real job growth in the state of Connecticut, not the state being the biggest employer. That's absurd. How is that going to work out? But if you listen to Mondami, am I saying his name right?
Yes.
We're going to control the means of production. Like, that's worked out before. Stalin, did you ever hear this guy Stalin? How'd that work out?
Venezuela.
Pol Pot in Cambodia, like, how'd that work out? Yeah. Venezuela, before the socialists got in there, like, booming country,
They
had
were-
all
yeah.
the oil in the world, ran it into the ground. I mean, Elon Musk said something brilliant one time. It's so funny. Love that guy. He was doing an interview, I think it was at SpaceX. He's walking this guy around, and somebody pointed something about the rocket and blah, blah, blah. And he was talking kind of about Tesla and the whole means of production, meaning like how he controlled the whole pulling elements out of the ground all the way to his production line, everything along the way, and the business side of it, right? And I said, why are you so interested in making this stuff, and why not? And he goes, and so much of it being made here. And Elon's point, he looks at the guy and he goes, hey, if we don't make any stuff, there's no stuff.
Yep.
What a seemingly simple statement, but like one of the brightest people that we've known in an awfully long time. I'm like, yeah, like, and if Connecticut keeps going down the path of not making anything, yeah, it's a nice state, it's beautiful, but like, we're just going to live off of tourists and leave peepers for the rest of, eternity? Like, what are we going to do
How's
here?
that doing from Maine?
Yeah. Oh my
Well,
God.
so we're going to connect this back to 2A because of that.
Yeah.
We used to be the gun manufacturer probably of the United States, right?
I work in North Haven,
yeah,
Connecticut. When
with
I first
Mossberg,
got
yep.
hired,
Yep.
we had 3.
Yeah.
There we had Mossberg has shrunk.
Yep.
And there was 2 other
Didn't you
rifle
have
manufacturers.
PTR down there? Wasn't it PTR?
Or something. Oh God, I wish I remember the name. It's not
Just
a gun.
think of Connecticut in general, right? Colt, Mossberg, Winchester,
Right.
Remington, Ruger.
Ruger
Right.
was right. I think was Ruger the one that was in North Haven? I forget.
It might have been, and
Yeah,
their headquarters was in Southport.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now they're in Arizona,
There's a
but
big
they just
manufacturing plant in North Haven.
Yeah.
I
One
mean,
of
they
my
were
first
all over the
fires.
place. One of Fazio's like commercials or ads or whatever was him at the old Ruger plant, which is just it's gone now. It's just
Right.
land.
it's empty.
And so we used to manufacture here, right?
Right.
And upon other things we manufacture, right?
And we were huge with brass, with everything.
yeah, the
This
Brass
was
City,
huge.
right?
Right.
Yes.
And even like Southington here, we had Pratt and Whitney. Used to have manufacturing all over the place, and it's just now not here.
Right.
Like
Well,
the
and you look
Democrats being in control have driven that out of the state,
Stanley's
and I mean
gone.
have driven it out of the country
Right.
when they're in power.
It's good to see that's another thing at the federal level we can do is incentivize, and the current administration is already doing this, right? Incentivizing businesses to onshore stuff. What is it, like $13 trillion in business he's gotten commitments to, or they've already started doing
Yep.
it? Onshore, Apple, Google.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, because we've become a country of consumers
right.
versus a country of manufacturers and producers. And I mean, we still had farms, but even then, the farmland is all being tapped down and all being pushed out. And
Right.
you have a generation that's coming up that doesn't want to deal with the big farm, so they develop it, and
Right.
they quick money. But the long term, nobody's looking, they say we have to go green because it'll be better for the earth, and we have to do all these things, except they're not doing anything long term.
Planting
to help. Correct.
solar crops.
Yeah. It's like, no, we have to build this country and continue to be a building country and make it work so that the businesses don't look overseas and go, oh, I can do it for
Wait a
a
minute.
third or
Well, how
less.
much-
Third. A third of a third.
Yeah, pennies on the dollar.
On the environmental and energy aspect in this, you have oil, right, across the country that we don't touch at all. And like,
Oil's bad.
is it? But like, and then you have third world countries that do things that are destroying more of the environment, right?
Right.
Here we're regulated, and I don't necessarily think one way or the other, right? Like, should we be polluting rivers and things? No, but we have the technology to go and not do those things, right?
Correct.
We have,
Or at least doing a lot better than
Yeah.
we used to.
Correct.
so like, I'd rather produce something here 99% cleaner than somewhere like China, for an example, producing something, and then that has
Child
consequences all child labor, yeah.
Well, and the
Uyghurs.
lithium, like, to dig lithium and the damage it does to the earth, but we
Oh.
don't talk about that. We want electric
Well,
cars.
and it's usually it's some 8-year-old with a mini sledgehammer cracking rocks.
Yeah. No, it's horrific if you look into it. What they tell you is it makes it look all pretty and roses and sunshine. Man, granted, I drive a diesel. I like oil.
Yeah.
Okay. I like those fossil fuels.
Well, I think the thing about solar, wind, gas, oil, nuclear, like it all needs to be part of the solution.
Correct.
But we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? But like we also need to be sensible about it. It's like, hey, what does it actually cost to produce this energy? What's the energy density? I mean, if people want to look at it, Michael Schellenberger did a great talk about this a few years ago. And this was a guy who was like a big Greenpeace guy when he started out his career, and chasing down whaling boats and diving in front of seals in the Antarctic, like or Alaska, whatever, right? And then he started really looking into the energy costs, and just the only thing you need to ask people is like, hey, does what you're doing produce the energy density to get done what we need to get done? And the answer is typically no. Forget about all the second and third order effects of producing said windmill, producing said solar panels, producing you name it, right? And I think it all should be part of the solution, but we need to do it with eyes wide open and not unduly influence one part of the equation to make the green people happy. So we're going to incentivize solar panels and winds and disincentivize, nuclear and fossil fuels.
Well, and like on the nuclear aspect, and Fazio knew a lot about this. when we interviewed him.
We've had a couple that knew quite a bit about it.
Like, we're pretty safe with nuclear here.
Well, hey, the nuclear's been running the Navy's been running a pretty long-going experiment with those modular nuclear things. The submarines and aircraft carriers been running those things for quite some time. You know, and the technology's just getting better.
Yeah, we're not Chernobyl here.
Right.
Okay. We have safeguards in place, right, when things go bad.
Plus, they can be way smaller now.
Yeah.
They can be way smaller.
But
that's a longer-term solution, though. I think there's two ways the federal government can help out there. And I think, listen, I've said this before about the state of Connecticut, not as it sucks that our energy prices suck, but then again, like we make jet engines and other parts up in Hartford for our military, right? We make military and military support helicopters on at Sikorsky. And for crying out loud, we build and house a big part of the nuclear submarine fleet here in
Groton.
Right in Groton, right? We can't afford for the power to go out, the lights to go out. Like that's a matter of national security. Full stop.
Yep.
A matter of national security. Like we can't not have the power to do those things and keep the lights on for everybody. So it's something we need to take serious, and that's something I'd love to learn more about and advocate for at the federal level for sure.
Awesome.
We still produce that, at least in Connecticut. A
Yes.
couple submarines and some helicopter stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because they don't get rid of that.
Those guys, the guys that do that were right around the corner from me in the Pentagon. N98. No, N98 is the aircraft carriers. N96 is the 97. I'm getting my numbers messed up. Anyways, the guys.
Close.
The guys. You have 95, 96, 97, 98 that do the different parts of the Navy, and 97 is the undersea stuff. So, and people don't realize, like, have you ever heard of something called the nuclear triad?
Yeah.
Right. That's what keeps us safe. Right. The reason,
Air,
mutually
land,
assured destruction, because there's submarines somewhere out there that are going to launch a bunch of missiles and wipe you off the face of the earth if you decide to mess with us. Won't be good for us either, but it's a good deterrent, right? Everybody gets hurt here. So those things, until we figure out a better way, and we can short circuit that whole system, which wouldn't be a bad idea either. But until that happens, like nuclear proliferation and mutually assured destruction is a real thing, and we need to be mindful of that. And we need to keep our powder dry, as they say in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it was, you have part of that nuclear triad, right? Your subs, you have the Air Force, right? The stealth bombers and that kind of stuff. And then we have like the silos out in the Midwest, which is not something we really know about here.
Right. But other people do.
Yeah.
Right. We hide it, but it's other people's whole mission in life is to study where those planes and where those missile silos are. They can't study where the submarines are.
No.
Right.
It's a little harder.
Yeah. Because they move around and they're too deep and
underwater.
Yeah.
So
it's all a problem for the enemy, but yeah.
All right, you want to pass like the last three? We're on border and safety.
Okay, yeah, I do. My turn. Okay, how does the crisis at the southern border affect
what crisis?
the? Okay,
Sarcasm there,
it's
Michelle.
like, wait a minute.
It's way different than it was a couple of years ago. So that's I'm actually that was actually somewhat tongue in cheek, somewhat serious.
Being in Connecticut, how do you think that crisis affects us? Because I have my own opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very different picture from what it was a couple of years ago under the Biden administration. Thankfully, we did close the door again, which is the biggest part of the problem. The door was just swinging wide open, not even just open with a come on in sign over it, right? Welcome. And not the right answer, and I have a couple of different feelings about that. I worked at the embassy in Mexico City in 2014-15 timeframe, and then I trained their special operators, actually trained the guys that got Chapo. You ever seen the video when they take Chapo down? There's a guy in a red sweatshirt clearing the building. That was one of the guys that we work with. He was one of my special operators from down there. But anyways, one of the things that was always interesting to me, driving into the embassy in the morning on my bicycle. I used to be in a suit that I tuck my pants, and I had a bicycle with a ring bell on it, and a big basket in front. It was hilarious. But it was way better than getting on the bus. And Mexico City is like, you think New York's big? New York's about 8 million people.
Yeah.
Mexico City somewhere between 24 and 25 million people. It's tremendous. And riding the bus system, I did it a couple times, but the bike was way easier. I knew my way. It was like a 3-4 mile drive, and anyways, you get there, and on most days it was a whole city block, biggest embassy in the world, at least it was at the time, probably still is. And whole city block, and there were people lined up all the way around the building. You know what they were there for?
Trying to get visas.
The immigration office. They're waiting to get in the immigration office. And if I understood it at all from some of the locals we talked to, it was kind of like the DMV used to be here back in the good old days. Remember being there at 3, getting there at 3:30 in the afternoon, or you get there at 3, and the line's out the door, and then they shut the door in your face at 4 o'clock. That's what it was like down there. So you hear stories of these people waiting 2-3 years just to get into the office, and then the money it costs them. They're making these like 4 or 5 hour treks to the city, to get to this office, and then waiting all day and then getting the door shut, whatever, horror stories. So these poor people finally get through. They do their thing. They put their paperwork in, and they come here. They paid their dues, whatever they're supposed to do.
Everything they were supposed to do legally.
They're the ones who are the most pissed off about it, and you can't blame them.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I jokingly say this, but like, you know how Taylor Swift concert, you have people waiting out the night before?
Yeah.
Try cutting that line.
Yeah.
Somebody will cut you. Like one of those Swifties will cut you and try to cut that line, right? So luckily they're not armed typically, thank goodness. Yeah. Right? But and it's now you're talking about someone who's like not a concert, but like your actual livelihood, your family, your whole existence, a years long line, and now we just had a certain administration. Like, we're just going to open it up and let them in. Like, it's insane. The fact that we have sanctuary policies here in Connecticut, it's absurd. I don't know. I haven't followed it that closely other than knowing that it's absurd. But the fact that we would pass laws here that directly contradict federal law and that, they're going to get the, when the federal law supersedes the local law, what's that called? I'm losing it.
And I'm blanking on it too. I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right? So, that's going to get shoved down our throat. What's that going to cost us as a state? We're talking about affordability.
Well, they're already looking at it.
Right.
So, it's going to.
What's that going to cost? How many millions or maybe even billions of dollars? I have no idea. Like, what's that going to cost us to fight that we knew was a losing battle just to make a political statement?
Well, Connecticut has several that we just keep fighting. The federal government says, can't do that. And then they turn around and go, yeah, we can. And so it's not just one thing. I mean, the DOJ is looking at us for our voter fraud. Yep. They want the voter rolls that we're saying, oh, no, you can't have that. They're looking at this whole immigration thing because in Connecticut, they are giving illegal immigrants, and they're calling them just immigrants. Well, they're the illegal immigrants are getting over $1 million. Yes. Yeah. My guns are too. So, but they're giving them over $1 million in different funding off of our budget.
Right. Who, each, you mean, or no?
Just as a whole. So
these more than $1 million.
These organizations are getting
driver's licenses too or something.
They get non-driver IDs. Yes. They're no.
Something like that.
You know what I think, and this is one of the things I think we need to come to a realization about, and because it's been, the immigration thing has been used as a political cudgel for a long time, right? And quite frankly, and I might get in political trouble for saying this, I'm really not interested in Julio or whoever, who has been shingling roofs for 20 years, right, and taking care of his family. Correct. I would like to see him get. If he's got to go back home and get whatever the rules are that he's got to do and do citizenship right, whatever process he's got to apply to get it done and be contributing to society, I'm not concerned with. The disturbing part is the fact that we have mixed in with the roofer are gang members, are people from these cartels, are people.
I think that's where
criminals.
Most people.
Yeah, and the fact that this state would go out of their way to protect them from federal law enforcement, it's just, and I don't, everything's going to be on a case-by-case basis with this kind of thing. Will the feds screw it up, come grab the wrong guy or gal? Of course they will. You think we didn't get bad intel over in Afghanistan or Iraq? Every once in a while, we went and grabbed the wrong guys.
It's harder than that, too.
Mea culpa.
A lot of their names are so common that it's very hard to know who's who.
I don't think it's. I mean, listen. Hopefully, at the federal level, with the apparatus and intelligence we have, we're better than that. The thing about it is, though, I think it's more likely that some of the muck of the federal systems, because, hey, this guy pinged on this, and this list. He's got to go, or she's got to go. Yeah. Right? Like, I don't even know. Like, try to go in reverse. Try to go to Mexico. So I was there in the embassy, working in an office that coordinated basically all the special operation troop movements in and out of country, right? We couldn't, and this was in conjunction with their State Department, with their president's office, the whole 9 yards. We couldn't be hours off in the country too long or come too early, right? Forget about it. And this was stuff that was coordinated at the Secretary of State level, right? Try going there and overstaying your visa. Try getting a job. Try buying property. Try doing any of those things. You get wrapped up in a minute.
Yeah.
Get booted in a second. Like it's not even funny how quick it would happen there, right?
Most countries.
And the fact that we're like, oh, well, just let them. Just not my house.
I think a lot of people probably don't understand that, right? So like how big the U.S. is,
right?
We travel inside the U.S.,
right?
Maybe we go on a cruise to the Bahamas or something, but like that has its own rules. I'm going over to Europe in like 2 weeks now.
Oh, nice. Where are you going?
We're going to Iceland and then it's a cruise ending in England and then going to France. Nice. And like getting the visas and the paperwork and making sure we have everything. And we have U.S. passports, obviously, but like making sure all our T's are crossed, all our I's are dotted, so we don't run into an issue. I don't think a lot of people in general realize like there's a ton of paperwork going into other countries.
Because because the U.S. uses immigration. They just say they're immigrants.
Right.
They leave off the illegal part because the U.S. is a melting pot.
Right.
It's built on immigration.
I've never met a person who has a problem with legal immigration.
No.
Well, look at what's going on in lots of parts. Speaking of England and other places, I have friends that are from England, and they're horrified with what's going on there because they let too many at one time that have a very different refugees that have a very different ideology and paradigm of what right looks like, right?
Correct.
And like, I don't know, but speaking for myself, I've been to a bunch of different countries, and I always wanted to learn stuff about the country, how they did things there. How do you say please and thank you here? How do you at the
Find
minimum,
the bathroom?
Yeah, how do you don't they settle on you, right? And you want to learn how they do things. What's customary to do? How do we do it here? Like, how is tipping? How do we do tipping here? How do we do that? Should I be giving these guys that? Like, how do you people do it here? Because I'm a guest here, not the other way around, right? And we've created an environment to some degree here. And in Europe, from what I understand, and this is coming from somebody who has family and stuff still in Great Britain and England, they're like, we have totally destroyed parts of the country. Mm-hmm. Like, there are towns with Sharia law.
Yes.
Like, are you out of your mind? And the funny part about it is you have the left here advocating for that stuff, right? And I would just love to take them to some places that have Sharia law and see like, not only will you not be able to have the blue hair, but it's going to be covered up all day. It's just like, what do you?
It also depends on who you're taking too, because we also have a lot of our politicians, our U.S. politicians, that have they don't have a problem with that because that's their culture.
Meaning the Sharia law thing. Mm-hmm. I don't listen. I'm not for it. I am totally against that. That is not what this country was founded on. And this is the funny. The people on the left, some of the kids that don't know any better and have been force-fed this ideology through whatever professors or schools they're going to or the social media, right? It's like,
they don't even know what it is.
This is antithetical to everything about your existence here. Understand that, like, it will not work out the way you think it. And I think I saw something on the news recently where some town, I don't know, it was like Ohio or something like that, they did, and they implemented it. Like, they voted in people and they implemented, or they tried to or whatever, and people are like, wait, what are you talking about? I can't walk down the street. It's prayer time. It's this time. It's that time. You can't go in. It's like,
you voted for it.
Sharia law is like an antithetical to women's rights. It's antithetical to free choice. It's antithetical to fill in the blank with so many things. Like, the LGBT community, like it's not a joke. Like, they will throw you off of a building in certain places over there where that kind of law is. And like, there's no.
And it boggles my mind, the people that, like, what was that? Iran and I've totally just lost it.
Iran and Iraq, Syria,
Israel, and what was the Strip? The Gaza Strip.
Gaza Strip, yeah.
Right? And what was the people from, like, Gaza? What were they called?
Palestinians.
There we go. And, like, the LGBTQ
gays
community.
For Palestine.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Do you know what will happen over there?
It's an insane. It's just, but it shows you.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get there.
Yeah, they don't though.
I say this all the time, and it's that we are victims of our own success here in this country all the time, oftentimes, most of the time. We have, what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, right? It's like, we all have basically like this hierarchy of needs, right? From like basic, like do I have food, shelter, and somewhere to sleep, right? All the way up to like self-actualization, right? And you know, most people here born in the United States are born like with the base covered already, without ever doing anything to earn it. Like, and I don't want to get all philosophical on you, but like, I think that creates a hole inside of people. If you don't have God, you don't have a belief in a higher power, right? Like you'll fill that hole, and that's, you know, your uncomfortable sense that you have about getting all these things you're not really entitled to, even though you are, or whichever you want to pose that. I think it causes angst with the human soul, right? So we have people here that want to fix something that's not broken. They want to cause the fight for. They don't believe in a higher power, so they just follow whatever. It's the COVID gods, it's the BLM gods, it's the LGBTQ gods, right? Like it's all
Fauci,
that,
COVID god,
right? It's all those things. Like they're gonna fill those in right along the way. And the problem is, if they don't pull their heads from you know where soon enough, it will be the classic saying: if you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Well, because they want to be relevant, but they don't understand they are relevant. They just want somebody else to say you're relevant. So they make sure that you need to hear me. You need to pass this. You need to do this. So that makes me relevant.
Right. It makes me important.
And you already are,
Right.
but they don't understand that. It's like I have a problem with everybody having a box. Not everybody needs to be put in a box.
Right.
You know,
and nobody should be put in a box.
we're all here.
Unless you're Harry Houdini.
Right. You know, and they look and they say, you know, gun owners are we hear all the time, are not accepted. You know, we don't accept any of the LGBTQ community. We are against them and this, that, and the other. Me personally, I don't care. Like, I don't care what you do, whether it's guns, whether it's this. I don't care. You do you and let me do me.
Right.
As long as we are not harming one another, you do you.
Right.
And as long as you're of legal age.
Correct. And people don't understand
Consenting
that.
adults.
Well, I do have a problem.
Well, that goes
with
into the harm. What she's saying about harm.
Yeah,
people.
that whole map individuals and stuff. I think we've gone off the deep end on that.
Well, that's the funny thing is I think, you know, people here have the luxury of living within their own illusory environment.
Yes.
Right? With no consequences.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, until, you know, and so you feel, oh, I'm a minor attracted person. Like, what?
Yeah.
What did you just say?
That's nasty. That's not okay.
There's 99 out of 100 dads want to do really bad things to you right now. Yeah. All right? So it's just like, rightfully so. Because what do you mean you're attracted to my minor child?
And it's a disorder. So I'm okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's never been okay.
We have lines on the street for a reason. We have stoplights for a reason. There's directions on which way to go for a reason. If there's no parameters, we'll just and here's the thing. You know, I said this. It's kind of
we have no parameters in other countries,
right?
And then you go and see them, and we typically call them like third world countries, right?
Well, but there's still parameters though. But you know what happens there? The might makes right.
Right.
Right. And it's kind of funny. You know, I look at certain places and certain areas where they want to defund the police. It's like, hey, the only reason you even have the opportunity to say something as ridiculous as that is because of the police.
Yes.
Right? Because there's law and order here, and it prevents, you know, just say we were back in the Viking days, right? Like, and I could pick, like, if you gave me a task unit of SEALs right now, even some of the old ones, equipped us with guns and whatever, like, and you just say, hey, you got free reign, do whatever you want. You know how long it would be before we were stopped in a place like New Haven County without law enforcement, without SWAT and everybody else coming in? Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you out of your mind? Like, do you want to bring back Genghis Khan? And like, we're just going to go. What had happened up in Seattle, right? Didn't that guy took over?
Yeah, yes. Like a whole couple blocks or something.
He took over the whole. Yes. Hey, and then they're like, "Oh, we have the police to come back in." Like, because of course you do.
They even put that in a TV show at the time. Station 19 was a spinoff of Grey's Anatomy.
Yep, they did. Yep. And that was ridiculous. Anyway, we don't want no kings, no authority. You can't tell us what to do. Except they put up barriers and then had guards at the entrances.
You mean like walls and cops?
No, yeah, they were like no borders. I'm like, but you just did that.
Just made a border.
Who's that blonde gal? Who's that? Who she with the curly hair? She was those with interviews on college.
Yes.
She was awesome.
Yeah.
And I just sit back and I go, these people are crazy. I mean, there's a lot you were talking about, Bennett. You know, countries and Sharia law and all that. People don't understand with Iran.
Right.
All right. If you look at Iran and look at the movie, you might have known it from back in the day, Not Without My Daughter. I don't know if you ever watched
No,
that.
what was that about? Was that somebody trying to leave the country?
Mm-hmm. And the woman was told you can leave, but not the kid because she was being beat. It was the
Right.
normal home, you
Right.
know, and the men rule over there no matter what. You don't
Right.
want to follow, fine, you're gone,
Right.
but not without the children.
Right.
And she was like, I can't leave without my daughter.
Right.
It was very impactful for me, but I also have ties back to Iran, so it kind of
Oh, really?
it kind of hit. But then you have also we were talking about, you know, the immigrants and the illegal immigrants.
Some of the
and
biggest
what's going
patriots,
on.
by the way, people that have come from places like Iran
Mm-hmm.
and have earned their citizenship here.
Oh yes,
They're the most fired up about, you know, and they know.
yes.
Well,
'cause
they've
they
seen back
saw.
home.
Done that. Yes,
Look
exactly.
what happened in '78.
Well,
I mean,
look what happened. Look what happened 2 years ago. These people mowed down, as advertised, 40,000 protesters here. We're going to burn it down because Renee Good and another gentleman got shot in an altercation with law enforcement, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not picking sides on that. I don't think either one of them should have been where they were. I think Governor Lamont should be ashamed of himself for trying to rile people up here to encourage more of that kind of behavior, because I saw him do it in person at this year's kickoff to the session. But, you know, we lose our minds when somebody who's like, there's an argument on both sides of that discussion that should she have gotten shot, shouldn't she have? I wish he didn't shoot her, but I can see how
Go
it
back to
happened.
George Floyd.
Yeah, we'll go-
right? And the
yeah.
riots across
Yeah.
the country.
Right. Over there, they
Like-
would have stomped those out with like blowtorches
Yeah.
or sniper rifles. That's how they would have ended those,
Yep.
you know, or automatic weapons even. Just, you know,
Then you have Tim Waltz out there, okay,
Ugh.
who just pardoned an undocumented, so illegal, because he was going to court and he didn't want ICE to take them, so he pardoned him and let him go
what
before
was he going to court for?
he was actually going to court for pedophilia.
Yeah, I think it was a child bediddler.
Well, that makes sense coming from him.
Yeah.
So you look at all these things and you go, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, oh, you can't
Well,
do that to
back
the
to my living
immigrants.
in their own illusory environment. It's like, hey, there's no consequences yet, anyways. They're
It's-
living in a fantasy land.
No, it's law-abiding tries,
Right.
and we get screwed for it.
Right.
Sorry.
We're gonna do a shotgun round here.
All right.
Because
Bring it.
we're getting up there for you.
Yeah, this has been fun.
It has. Very interesting conversation. So, campaign strategy.
Yes, sir.
What's your plan for victory?
I have no idea.
Okay.
To win.
To win.
To win. You know, hey, listen. There's a bunch of things I think that need to happen in this election. You know, we are working really hard on getting out the vote. Like, you know, there's a certain percentage that will vote for us regardless. We need to make sure they're getting out voting.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, in the gun community, right?
Yeah, we're our own-
hunters community.
we are our own worst enemies, man.
enemies.
This is
Getting off-
exactly why we do what we're doing right now.
Getting off our own front lawn and going to vote, right? You know,
Republicans in general are
yeah.
very disenfranchised with voting
yeah,
right now.
but they
which
need to
is
know.
sad.
We're telling them like, hey, there's a couple things. Like we're gonna get in the cities, we're gonna get in the countryside, we're gonna get everywhere in between, right? Full stop. You know, we need to pay attention to the demographics, right? The district is made up of 21% Hispanics. Believe it or not, my gringo looks se habla español. I can speak pretty good Spanish. Actually,
Oh, you were in Mexico City for a
Yeah,
long
for a
time,
little
so
bit. I actually learned, yeah, and then I kept
up a little
practicing.
bit.
So it's like about fifth grade Spanish. I'm not going to have Marco Rubio high level discussions of policy in Spanish, but I can hold my own. You know, I'm one of the guys that if we have an accident in North Haven, gets called over to the car if there's no Spanish speakers to ask them what's going on.
I can say
you know.
Donata. That's
Yeah,
about as
Donata.
far as I get.
Donata.
yeah, see, you
Gracias.
learned another
Si
word.
habla más despacio, puedo entender. Si
Yeah, no.
habla
See,
más
nope,
rápido, no
nope.
puedo
I think
entender.
that's a little more than fifth
So,
grade.
so what it says, what I say is that if you speak slowly, I can understand you. If you talk too fast. So to my friend's wife, who's Puerto Rican, when she gets mad at me, I can't understand a word she's saying. She sounds like an outboard motor. She's one of my very good friends, Marty. But and they know, right? They know that. You don't get her fired up because she'll just speed up and get higher toned and game over. You're in trouble.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, you're in
That's
trouble.
Yes.
But so lean into that community. You know, we have the support of the National Republic Hispanic Association. We're going to be doing joint events with them in the cities and around the area.
Good.
You know, we have about 30,000 veterans in the 5th District. All of them have family, friends, loved ones They don't, and newsflash, they don't just live out in places like Litchfield. Actually, a lot more of them live in places like Meriden, New Britain, Waterbury, Danbury, and Torrington, right?
Yeah, I forgot. So you have Meriden, you have New Britain, you got Waterbury.
And you have Danbury?
Most of Danbury, all of Danbury, all of Meriden, all of New Britain, most of Waterbury, and about half of Torrington, if my math is correct, something like that, because it's not gerrymandered.
Yeah.
Those are some big cities.
But so there's a lot of first responders. They also have family friends that, motivating them. And then we have about 8,000 first responders. So a bunch of firemen, bunch of police officers, bunch of EMS workers, right? If we can't take, as a Republican Party, the retired Navy SEAL, who's a current fire lieutenant, who started an organization solely focused on helping veterans and military people transition into first responder roles. If we can't get that cohort of people fired up to vote for me, then we ought to just pack it in, just hand it to the Democrats, right? So a big part of the strategy is working with the vets, working with the various VFWs in the capacity that they can, politically or not, and making sure we don't step on any toes there. The folks from those organizations, the American Legions, the other community-based organizations that are veteran first responder based. We're actually, give a shout out tonight. We're going to an event called for Our Community Heroes out of New Haven. He has an event where he does things to, he's a cop. He does things to support veterans, you name it, all sorts of stuff, from sending stuff to troops overseas.
Oh, cool.
Another big thing too is we're working really hard on raising the money that we need to raise. We're in somewhere in the 310 to 320 range, what we've raised so far, which isn't a lot. We're going to need a lot more than that to beat Johanna. But, we are doing the hard work, and trust me.
So where can people, we'll say this at the end, right before we close, but where can people go donate?
Yeah, so they can go to ChrisSheaForCongress.com. There's links right on the website.
Is it 4 or is it 4?
4. So it's Chris, ChrisSheaFor Congress.com.
Okay.
There's a link right there.
Because again, guys, and we've said this in another podcast, when you run federal, there's
you get
no
nothing.
CEP money. There's no civilian program for that.
That's another misunderstanding in Connecticut. That was a lot, and it's kind of hurt the federal candidates because people think, 340, I'm a max donor. And it's like, listen, we appreciate $34, but we are going to need a lot more. We're not going to get handed, however much the governor's candidate gets handed or whatnot. You don't get
a penny from
millions
the
of dollars from the state, right? Because we've earned the small dollars. We need to, as we say in the teams, you eat what you kill. So that's what it comes down to.
How are you going to reach the unaffiliated? What are you guys doing to? Because I know, like in Connecticut, the unaffiliated is the major group of voters.
They're the biggest. Unaffiliated and independents are the biggest group. Listen, I'll go back to my example about the two congressmen working together in Congress. Because people, because there's some people. I went to a meeting one time early on to one of the RTCs. It was an older gentleman and his wife were sitting there. And he says, I sit down, and they knew I walked in. I goes, I hope you're not going to be one of those guys that works at the other side or something like that. I'm like, whoa.
Well, you have to.
I'm like, so I said, hey, sir. I says, here's what I'll tell you. I said, I can promise you this. I'm not going to go down there and bend over for the other side. I'm not going to do that. I'll promise you that up front. I says, but the things that I think are important, I will stand up for sure. And we can go through with those, what they are. We've kind of hit up a bunch of them that are important to me, right? And but it is designed to be a collaborative environment. Like that's how the founding fathers started this country. They did not want one party rule. So I had during that workshop I told you guys about, we had actually a professor from Yale come down, and he gave the best history lesson. It was like picture Saturday morning cartoons. That remember the stuff I don't know if you guys are young enough to remember that. You remember the? Yeah, you probably don't.
I did.
A bill is a bill, all that kind of stuff, right?
I do
and you learn the basics. Like this guy took it to the college level professor, and like that on steroids, and was like the best hour and a half on American history, but going back to the oh my God, the Magna Carta in England, how things went forward from there, right? Mm-hmm. And how integral that was to our form of government, how Washington and the other founders and Thomas Jefferson, all those guys, the brilliant minds, how they put together what they put together. The one thing that may be disturbing to folks out there, because our pace of doing things and the information age, we just expect stuff to just because it does on our phone. Well, it just happened like that. That rocket launched and look, it came right back down. I can do that too. Like, no, you can't. But, but people kind of have that idea, like the federal government, like, the managing, governing, commerce, healthcare, taxes of 350 million people. You're just going to do it like that.
Fix it.
Like, no, you're not. But what this guy said to us, he goes, there may be an argument for more of a parliamentary style, kind of what Britain has now than what we have now. He goes, but just know this. Our system of government is working, listen to what I'm saying, exactly the way the founders intended it to work. Mm-hmm. They wanted stuff to stall. They wanted the Senate to be slow. They wanted the Congress to be a bunch of action and stuff changing all the time. They wanted that to be the raucous part that was yelling about things. And they wanted the executive branch to make decisions and execute on stuff. Now, granted, you can make arguments about different pieces of it, and hey, should this work differently? Do we need to reform this? Yeah, there's a million discussions to be had there. But the fact of the matter is we're used to stuff on our phones happening.
Instant gratification.
Instantaneous, gratification and action. And that's not really, could you imagine if laws were passed and unpassed, like at the speed that we see stuff on our heads would all just blow off what was that Chappelle show? When the guy's head explodes? The guy exposes himself. You ever seen that? The Ku Klux? Anyway, it's just.
I know what Dave Chappelle is, but
it was a funny skit where the guy exposes it and his head blows up. Like our heads would blow up; they would just explode.
Well, and how many mistakes would be made? We'd be going back and forth because it would all be just off the cuff.
How many mistakes are made in bills that take days, hours, and weeks to pass that are still messed up?
Correct.
We don't really give a rip.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't mean people are heartless or people don't care. Because that's not usually the case. If it's in front of them or they see it on their phone, they do care. But it's like, hey, if I have food in my belly, my air conditioning's working, I got my 300 channels of TV, if you even watch any more of my, whatever you want or need, my family's in good shape. Like the person in Nebraska, forget about the person in sub-Saharan Africa. Like you can't, like we don't have the capacity to think about.
If it's not in front of our face, most people don't pay attention.
Yeah. But the transverse of that is like, people will get so fired up about an issue at the state or the federal level. And the federal level, like being in the Pentagon, it's the next biggest bureaucracy in all the federal government, right? And like I said, getting to get that 30,000-foot view of how things work and how the nuance of how stuff has to get done. It's like, me pissing and moaning as an E4 checks for strokes. Like, hey, we need 100 sets of boots. As well, we got enough for 75, take it or leave it. You know what I mean? I'm just,
right.
It's a silly example, but like, because the submarines need this, the aircraft carrier needs this. And oh, by the way, there's a whole Department of the Army, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, all those guys got to be taken care of too. Right. So people get really mad at these bills. And I at surface level, I think it'd be great to see them handled maybe on single issue items, but I don't, what somebody's issue is in Connecticut is not their issue in Illinois, is not their issue in Texas, is not their issue in California.
Correct.
Right. So I'd like people to just remember, like, hey, there are good Americans. I'll go back to that conversation I had with those two sitting congressmen talking about farming and food on the shelves. That's happening. I can promise you I'll go there and do that. I can't promise you I'm going to go there and fix D.C. And anybody who does promise you that, you got to throw them right off the air or kick them right out of your building because they're full of baloney.
Well, because not everything's black and white. There is a lot of gray in the middle, and that's how you find your happy medium.
Right.
Because
there's going to be hills to die on. I know that.
Oh yeah.
And I'll give you one from my career. COVID was a hill I was willing to die on. I was in the Pentagon. I got COVID early on. We had like body aches for like a day and a half. They made me stay home for 2 weeks. And then like 6 months later, they tell me I got to get a vaccine for the thing that I recovered for in like a day and a half. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Well, you got to do it. The rules say you got to do it. And you had all these like higher up people like.
Well, because you were still in the military.
I was still in the military, and I had to get it. I'm like, I'm not getting it. I'm not doing it. So, and just for a little bit about being willing to die on a hill. So as a reservist, I was on active duty orders. So I got a set of 3-year orders, like some temporary orders in the beginning, kind of learning the building and learning people. And then I got a set of 3-year orders. Mm-hmm. And reservists, like you're a weekend warrior and you go on active duty, you get paid the 1st and the 15th. Yeah. And then as soon as those orders up, your paycheck goes back to a weekend warrior check, which is a small fraction of what you get paid on active duty. Trust me. And we had bought a house in Alexandria, Virginia. We had, and the way the military had set things up is like to encourage participation from reservists and guardsmen they had said, typically for a reservist, you could do a 20-year career, and if you never deployed or never did any active duty time, you retired, say you've gotten in 20, you retired at 40 years, you're going to get a 50% pension. They've changed it now because I know guys are going to tweak me on this. But back then, you would get a percentage of a percentage at the 60-year-old mark.
Okay.
So it's really like pennies on the dollar. So you could do like 20 years serving your country in the reserves, and you're going to get like $1,000 a month. I'm just throwing numbers out. 20 years from now.
Right.
So I had done a bunch of deployments and short-term stuff and put my family through the helicopter crash and all this other banana stuff. And I'm like, hey, I got asked to serve more. And then I also said, hey, if I do some active duty time, I can actually, they passed the law where your time would count towards buying down that retirement age, right?
Yep.
So it's a thing for any reservist or guardsman. So so in other words, like say you were that same 40-year guy, right? And you did 10 years of it active duty after 2008 was the NDAA that the authorization that made that happen. If you got 10 years in before you retired, now your retirement's going to come 10 years earlier.
Okay.
Being a little bit of an old fart, being 50-some years, I had it all planned out. Like, okay, I do this time, I serve my country, I do what I can do in the Pentagon. That retirement age is going to come down, so I walk out still at a lesser percentage, but like an active duty person with a pension.
Yeah.
Right.
And my family and I, we moved down to D.C. We took a leave of absence from the fire department. I actually did some back and forth D.C. to the fire department. That's a whole nother
podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast. But and my town is awesome, great to me, and took really good care of me. Sort of the guys there. But so that 3 years, there was already plans for a second set of orders. Another 2 years would get me to that full 5 years. I would glide right into that retirement thing, right? Now, I had bought a house down there that I could only afford on my military salary with a housing allowance that was for D.C. down in Alexandria, Virginia. I didn't get authorization that I was doing the other orders until like December 17th. My orders were up January 7th. Pucker factor. But what I had to do was I had to find a study from the National Institutes of Health that actually studied natural immunity. That was the only way you could get out of it. Religious exemptions were ignored. The fact that you got it already was ignored, which...
I thought a military didn't give anybody an exemption.
No,
I thought they just made
because
you.
I volunteered I went study shopping, and I said, well, I'll do my part. I will give my blood and my urine and all my other stuff so they can study it and find out how my immunity is compared, for somebody who got it and recovered. And would you know, 3 years later, mine was still better than any of the vaccinated folks. Figure the odds, right? But
that was you were
that was
willing to say.
I'm like, I'm not doing it. And my wife worked in healthcare. She ended up getting it. We didn't talk for a couple of days. I was upset with her for getting it. She reminds me of that all the time. But I said, I don't care. I said,
would you have left the military if they forced you and said you don't have a choice? Either you get out or you do this?
I would have fought it till the end. Yeah. I was right till the end anyway. So it was like my orders, they were just not going to they were not going to renew my orders. I would have been back to a reserve status, and then I don't know what the following would have been from there, but it would have cost me
a lot.
It would have cost right then, based on my salary and pension, it would be a few $100,000. And just the fact of getting booted out of the military after 30 years and that kind of thing, it would have been they would have just forced retired me. They wouldn't have booted me, but because I was way past retirement age, but I would have been forced out.
Wasn't in the plan.
It was not in the plan, no.
All right, I got two more questions. One of them is give a closing argument on why voters in your district should send you to Washington.
Why they should send me to Washington. Well, we've already talked about a lot of why I would have a head start on a lot of other people. I think that's something key to think about. I actually am from the district. We've had people run before that were kind of from the district, not really, other addresses. And I'm not picking on anybody, but I actually born and raised here and know the people.
And still own property here?
Still own property in Oakville and in Cheshire. And my mother's house is in Watertown. My daughter's building a house in Watertown. So our roots, and my future son-in-law, they're getting married in a couple of weeks here. His family's all in Watertown and the surrounding area. So yeah. So like my people are here.
So you're doing a wedding and a campaign?
Ugh. Yeah, tell me about it.
Fazio's getting married like 3 weeks after.
Yeah,
after.
It's still though. You got to plan everything.
Yeah. So I think there's a bunch of stuff to consider about why you should send me there. The current person representing you guys didn't think we need those tax breaks that I told you about before. She, as far as I can tell, thinks that 16-year-old boys should play in contact sports against 16-year-old boys. I disagree. Thinks they should share the same locker room. I disagree. She believes in sanctuary policies. I disagree. I think she was part of voting for the open borders and whatever was supportive of the last administration.
She was very far left.
So yeah. So and just so you know, believe it or not, there's a organization that ranks their voting records, and she's 3 to the left of AOC. You hear me?
Wow.
3 to the left. She ranks 418 out of 435.
I didn't realize she was that bad.
AOC only ranks 415. And this is the funny thing, because she plays herself as a moderate. I say funny like an ironic, not ha-ha. Like what,
she says she's moderate?
Funny? No, she plays herself as a moderate.
No.
But what I'm saying is based on her record, that's quite the contrary. So, and listen, I mean, the 5th District is the most red district just by registered voters of the 5 districts. Like, how the heck do we have the most left voting person representing the most right-leaning district? It's just all upside down and backwards. So that's why you should send me there to advocate on your behalf and the things that I know are integral and part of the lives of people that have grown up in the 5th District and spent all of their time, other than being away on military duty, in that district, not away for other reasons.
So at the end of the day, there's 2 votes for you. They have to vote for you during the primary.
Yep.
August 11th.
August 11th. Yes. They have to get out there and vote, guys. Woo-hoo.
Yes,
there's
get
a
out and
primary.
vote. Don't fool around.
And then the second one would be November's election.
Correct.
So those are the 2. So with you, it's not just a one, like, it's
a twofer.
It's a twofer.
Yeah. What a deal.
And it's so easy. Just go vote.
Right.
So how can people find you, support you, volunteer, and donate?
So listen, we have a presence on Facebook. You can find us there. We have obviously the website I told, Chris Shea for Congress, all spelled out, .com. There's links there to come see us. We're having a door knocking event this Saturday in Cheshire, my hometown. Be our first go at it, and then we have a whole list of towns and cities we're going to hit along the way.
How do they reach you if they want to help with door knocking?
If they want to help with door knocking,
860-878. Hold on.
Give that a
860-878-4350. Give us a ring.
Yes.
Love to see you.
That way, if anybody can help out, because it's always good to help out the campaign, especially with the door knocking. There's a lot of doors to knock on, guys, and they could use some help.
There is, and door knocking works.
Right.
Yes.
And also, listen, the one thing I've got no disagreement from everybody from the lowest level all the way up to the White House is the money matters.
Yes.
So if you got $5 or $5,000 burning a hole in your pocket, please send it our way, because it will be necessary to defeat her. Certain people are saying you can do it grassroots, and it's not necessary.
They
has
pour a lot of money into her campaign.
It has not happened. It will not happen.
They continually pour money into her campaign.
Well, yeah. It'll be interesting, though. That's a couple things to think about. It's like, hey, if we build a big enough one, they may decide other races are more important to win or flip or pay attention to.
That'll be good.
Right? And our worst case scenario is if we raise enough money to give her a George Logan challenge the first time or better, they're going to have to dump a bunch of money in this. And that's not what we're shooting for. We are shooting to win. Our intention is to win this race and go to D.C. and advocate on your behalf. It's not just to give her a run for her money, right? But the worst case scenario is it will cost them to dump $7 to $10 million in this race if we really give them a run for the money. And that means they can't hammer other places, right? That would be our worst case scenario. And if we do that, that also, I don't think they have the money we have this year, if I'm tracking certain stuff that the NRCC and other places have. So it's going to be interesting. The money thing is going to be interesting, and it's important. And I hate that it's all about that, but it is part of the hard work that it's like, hey.
Everything from Washington to local.
Yes.
Right? We do fundraisers right across the board.
Right.
Campaigns cost money.
Yeah.
Well, and at the end of the day, and it's not a lot. You need a lot more money than even the state people because they have the grant. Mm-hmm. But guys, think about it. If you want actual representation down in D.C., we've got several different districts. Average it out. Give everybody a little bit. Just cut them a check. Let's get some representation down there.
Don't go to Starbucks or Dunkin' for a week.
Right. Or, you don't
One
go.
day.
One day per person. There you go.
us ladies, don't get your nails done every 2 weeks. Wait every 4. You know, it's just one of those things. There's ways that you can save money.
Well, that might have crossed the line.
Yeah, I think my wife's going to yell at you
My
later.
daughter's going to be not going to like that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. 3 weeks. How about you cut in the middle?
Yeah, there you go.
Every 3 weeks.
But, you know, there's ways you can make that extra, and you're not going to miss, you know, if you don't have it, you're not going to miss $20-$30. You might miss $5,000, but, you know, a couple tens, throw them out. It does help. It goes.
Go through your
does
car.
help.
There's got to be some change kicking around in there.
Well, I'll say
always
this:
in mind.
if you don't get us elected and get more of us elected, you're going to be missing a lot more than $5,000 over the next couple of years, anyways. So, one way to think about
That's
it.
a valid argument.
That is valid, very valid. I don't like it, but he's right.
All right. You are coming up on possibly the longest podcast we've had. We're almost there. You're almost beating the record, but we're gonna cut you short.
All right.
So thank you for coming on again.
very
What's
much.
the website again?
Chris, ChrisSheafor, Congress.com.
All right. And then Facebook,
Facebook,
Instagram.
Instagram,
Okay. Site.
X. We're not on TikTok.
Gotta start doing TikToks, man.
I don't know. We got it. Yeah. I
don't think he's doing TikToks.
I don't know what the right. We're not on it yet.
He'll get there. He'll get there. All right. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for joining us. My name's Josh.
I'm Michelle.
Josh, Michelle, I'm Chris. Thank you very much for having me. Everybody out there,
you.
thanks for watching.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Lock and Load Podcast is sponsored by Lock and Load Firearms, Connecticut's #1 rated gun store and pistol permit class on Google. Come check us out, 1573 Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington. Lock and Load Firearms.
Lock and Load Podcast is also sponsored by Patriot Wear Holsters, custom-made Kydex holsters locally made in Waterbury, Connecticut. www.patriotwearholster.com and use code LNL Podcast for 10% off your purchase. Orders available for shipping or pickup at various locations.